Well, guys, it's out, the Pacific. So let's hope that the devs saved this game with this campaign, because it's the last roll of the dice for them. So let's get into it. Let's see what they got. Hey, what's up, scholars? It's your professor here, Enlisted, and I have spent most of the weekend grinding out the Pacific campaign. I have pretty much gotten halfway in both tech trees, and I think I have a pretty decent understanding of the campaign as a whole. So I wanted to share my thoughts about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this campaign. So let's get into it. Alright, so I want to start off on a positive note here and talk about the levels. Right now there are only 3 levels, and those 3 levels look amazing. The lush tropical environment, dark hiding holes make the perfect hiding spot for snipers, while providing a bunch of concealment for aggressive assaulter pushes. The environment is semi-destructible, and I have to admit it is super fun leveling a hut village with explosives. Like Tunisia or the Berlin campaign, there's a lot of verticality in the Pacific, which I kind of found surprising. Also, the maps have the flanks extended, so you can now get some pretty cheek flank rallies down. It just felt well polished from the flow of the game, not super slowed down, but not chaotic SA like in Berlin. I've also found some pretty interesting Easter eggs throughout the levels, so I'll be making a video on that soon, so don't forget to hit that subscribe and bell notification so you don't miss out. Rolling with the positives, I want to get into the weapon unlocks. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I have gotten pretty much to the mid-level unlocks currently. And of all the weapons that I've unlocked, they all feel pretty good. While most of the American unlocks are repeats, I actually felt useful in having a purpose using the Springfield bolt action. Honestly, this is my favorite time to play Enlisted, early in a campaign while bolt actions rule the land and everyone is using these lower tier weapons. The Japanese have a more unique experience and I find myself probably enjoying their equipment more, but the unlocks between the two factions seem pretty balanced to me thus far. Weapons I would use for sure for the Americans is the Springfield A3 sniper rifle, the M50 submachine gun, and the Auto 5 shotgun. For the Empire of the Rising Sun, I would use the Type E rifle, the Type 100 early SMG, and of course the swords. These are just a few of the weapons that I've found the most useful in my grind, but your mileage may vary. Now for tanks and planes, I'm going to say this right now, if you are a gray zone camper, fuck you. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the M13. It is by far the best vehicle in the game currently. It shreds infantry and tanks alike. Even with the nerfs that they introduced on Thursday for it, I don't know how you stop this thing. The Tossie is decent, but it seems to survive less than the M13. Now the best way to take these things down is with the AT rifle explosive pack or of course the TNT pack. You can shoot the crews, but I find that to be a bit hit or miss right now.
You see the 2 of them?
Do you see this? Like, I'm literally shooting this guy in the head and it's not doing anything. As for the M24, it has good speed, the machine guns are great, but the Ha-Go just makes me want to deep throat a Glock. For planes, pilots are honestly going to be a bit depressed because there's nothing worth really investing your time in. The hydroplanes don't have forward-facing guns, and their bombs are pretty small to be effective, although I did find that the Japanese hydroplane is a bit better. Even when I got to the Buffalo or the A5, I wasn't really that effective as a CAS player. I know a lot of you are struggling to take off or land on the carriers, and I will do a separate video on how to do that, so be on the lookout for that in the near future. Speaking of CAS, let's get into the bad of the campaign. The biggest one has got to be the airstrike call-in being available to radio men level 1. You wouldn't think this is a problem because you have a bunch of the SPA unlocks, but let's be honest here, the players don't want to do anything that helps their team. They only care about their kill stats, and I get why the developers thought it was a good idea to put them in there because of those SPAs, having them focus on something else besides shredding the infantry, but again, all the player cares about is his own stats. So now you're kind of left with this airstrike call-in that happens every few seconds, and it's really annoying when you're trying to defend or even attack a point because it's just explosions everywhere. An additional con has got to be how good the white phosphorus grenades are. Once people start getting large grenade pouches, it's going to get very ugly very quickly. They have a super long burn time, and not to mention, if you have 3 of them, you can actually cover the entire point from my testing. Not to mention, they basically double as a smoke grenade, so for all you console players, you're probably going to see some frame rate drops. Gray zoning tanks is a problem in every campaign, and here is no different. But a huge problem is the AA gun in placement spam right now. Because the maps are so large with these flanking routes available to attackers, premium squads or even the regular engineer can build an AA emplacement that can basically cut off half the map and then shoot into the next point. This makes for some very frustrating games, more than usual than you see in other campaigns. Since we're on the topic about premium squads, this has got to be another bad for the campaign. Many of you on the live livestream asked Enlightened, was the pre-order worth it? For me personally, the answer was no. The Marine Raider squads with the Thompsons only having 20 round mags made them pretty combat ineffective in my opinion. Sure, it has a great rate of fire, but getting those squad wipes even up close was a bit more of a challenge because of that limiting factor of those magazines. The Amphibious Tanks are okay, but I'm not really that much of a tank player. I do have a tip for them later in the video, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Now, the Type 1 Japanese squad is great, however, and I see it stacking very well into the late game, so the pre-order package was not a complete loss. Now, there are 2 other premium squads in the game, and I'm going to say this right now. Do not get them. While yes, it will help you grind faster, they aren't going to stack well into the late game at all. Plus, the weapons aren't even that unique. Save your money and then just join my Patreon. I mean, buy my merch. Alright, enough of me being a shill. Let's get into the balance. Many of you are saying that the US are OP or that the Japanese are just too good. I find that very interesting because I have roughly the same win rate on both sides here. But I get it. I play this game way too much, and I'm a world champion for Pete's sake. The unlocks to me are pretty balanced currently, but if you had to ask me, Enlighten, who has the advantage right now? If you had to pick one, I would probably say the US. The M13 and the M24 are just something that tips the scales in the favor of the Americans, in my opinion. Now, I understand that a lot of you US players are struggling hard, and I think that's more because a lot of the experienced players are playing the Japanese more than they are the Americans, so you're going to actually have these solo queuings that are going to be very hard for you to win. Just be patient, and eventually the player base will even itself out. We see this with every campaign. The player base as a whole picks one side, and the other side always seems to struggle. I just don't want to see Darkflow sit there and nerf the Japanese into the dirt and then buff the Americans only to find that they're going to have to reverse this later on into the game. Overall, I think the Pacific is a really balanced campaign, in my mind at least, and I think they did a great job with the 26 levels that they added thus far. Now, if this campaign gets out of whack when they start adding more stuff, I'll let you know. Looking at you, the Moscow campaign. So you're still here. I guess you want some tips and tricks for this campaign. Alright, so number 1, you're going to want to keep your snipers in your lineup. They are great at spotting people, and they're awesome for defense. Alright, number 2, if you are a pilot, do not go back to the traditional rearm point. Go back to the repair point where you have to land because it's closer and it's actually faster for you to get back up into the air and be a more effective CAS player. Number 3, if you are in one of those amphibious tanks, go out to sea with them. It'll make the enemy have to swim out to you, so you won't get killed as often. Number 4, the TNT pack is available to everyone, and it is a lot better than the lunge mines. Use them to destroy vehicles or put them on the capture point to give the enemy a nasty surprise. Number 5, you can give the Japanese all swords, and that is just awesome. Give all your guys swords. Number 6, you can do a Bonsai Charge on either side, either the Americans or the Japanese. Just hold G. This is super effective if you want to cover some ground quicker or if you want to get to that capture point a little bit faster. Number 7, you can pretty much shoot through any building, so don't be afraid to let loose. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today. If you like the Pacific, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. As always, scholars, hit those books and hit those bottles. Cheers.